My mom yelled, "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out. That house is your sister's now." I didn't argue, I just stayed silent and prepared. 2 days later, when my sister walked in, she wished she had never stepped inside. "I'm Sarah, 28, and I need to get this off my chest. What happened 3 months ago still feels surreal, but I have the bank statements and legal documents to prove every word of this story is true." Growing up, my sister Jessica was always the golden child. 2 years younger than me, blonde, bubbly, and absolutely adored by our mother. While I was the responsible one working part-time jobs through high school and college, Jessica was the free spirit who could do no wrong. Mom would excuse every mistake, every failure, every cruel thing Jessica did as just her personality or she's still figuring things out. The favoritism was obvious to everyone except Mom. Dad used to try to balance things out when he was alive, but he passed when I was 22, leaving Jessica and me with Mom's undivided attention. Unfortunately for me, that attention came with a heavy dose of criticism and impossibly high expectations, while Jessica continued to coast through life consequence-free. After college, I landed a decent job in marketing while Jessica bounced between part-time gigs and finding herself. I saved every penny I could, living in a tiny studio apartment while Jessica moved back in with Mom. By the time I turned 26, I had enough for a down payment on a house. Not just any house, the perfect house. It was a 1920s craftsman bungalow in a trendy neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. The place needed work, but it had good bones, original hardwood floors, and a massive backyard. More importantly, it was in an area that real estate agents were calling the next big thing. I saw the potential immediately. I spent every weekend for 2 years renovating that house. I learned to tile, to paint, to install fixtures, and even did some basic plumbing. I researched every improvement, watched countless YouTube tutorials, and slowly transformed that rundown property into something magazine-worthy. The kitchen got a complete overhaul with white subway tile and butcher block counters. I restored the original hardwood floors to their former glory. The bathroom became a spa-like retreat with a clawfoot tub I found at an antique store. During this time, Jessica was living rent-free at Mom's house, spending her days posting Instagram photos and her nights partying. She'd occasionally stop by my place, always with some comment about how cute my little project was, but never offering to help. Mom would visit too, always finding something to criticize. The wall color was too bold, the fixtures too modern, the yard too wild. Nothing I did was ever good enough. But I didn't care. This house was mine. It was the first thing in my life that was completely, entirely mine. I'd never felt more proud of anything. Then the neighborhood exploded. A trendy coffee shop opened 2 blocks away. A boutique fitness studio followed. Property values started climbing fast. My $180,000 investment was suddenly worth $320,000, and climbing every month. I couldn't believe my luck and hard work had paid off so spectacularly. That's when Jessica started paying attention. She began showing up more often, bringing friends to tour my place. She'd post photos of herself in my living room, tagging the location and talking about spending time at home. When people asked about the house in the comments, she never corrected their assumption that it was hers. The breaking point came last December. I was hosting my annual holiday party, something I'd done for 3 years running. Jessica showed up uninvited with a group of her friends, including her new boyfriend, Marcus. I'd heard about Marcus but hadn't met him yet. He was some kind of real estate investor, apparently quite successful, and Jessica was clearly smitten. During the party, I overheard Marcus telling someone how impressed he was with Jessica's house. When I corrected him, explaining that I was the owner, Jessica laughed it off as if I was joking. She actually said, "Sarah likes to pretend she's the homeowner, but family is family, right?" The audacity left me speechless. Later that night, after everyone had left, Jessica cornered me. She was drunk and mean, the way she got when she felt threatened. She told me I was selfish for keeping such a big house to myself when she was stuck living with Mom. She said it wasn't fair that I got to live the dream life while she was struggling. When I pointed out that I'd worked and saved for years while she'd partied, she accused me of being jealous of her relationship with Mom. The fight ended with Jessica storming out, but not before she made a threat that chilled me to the bone. "We'll see about this house situation. Mom agrees with me that it's not fair." I should have seen what was coming. 2 weeks later, Mom called and asked me to come over for dinner. She said she wanted to discuss something important about the family. I figured it was about Jessica's latest drama or maybe holiday plans. I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. When I arrived, Jessica was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a folder of papers and a smug expression. Mom looked uncomfortable but determined. She didn't even let me sit down before she started talking. She explained that she'd been thinking about fairness and family obligations. She reminded me of everything she'd done for me growing up, how she'd sacrificed to raise 2 daughters alone after Dad died. She talked about Jessica's struggles and how much harder it was for some people to find their way in life. Then came the bombshell. She wanted me to sign over the house to Jessica. The reasoning was twisted but delivered with complete conviction. Since Mom had helped raise me and taught me the values that led to my success, she felt partially responsible for my ability to buy and improve the house. Meanwhile, Jessica had been supporting Mom emotionally through difficult times and deserved something to show for her loyalty. The house would give Jessica stability and a fresh start with Marcus. When I started to protest, Mom cut me off. She said this wasn't a negotiation. She'd already spoken to a lawyer and had papers drawn up. Jessica needed the house more than I did, and as the older sister, I should be willing to make this sacrifice for family. The gaslighting was incredible. Mom made it sound like I'd been selfish and ungrateful my whole life, taking advantage of their love without giving back. She painted Jessica as the victim and me as the privileged one who needed to learn about sharing. I looked at Jessica, hoping to see some sign of discomfort with this insane plan, but she just sat there nodding along. When I refused to sign anything, she finally spoke up. "Sarah, don't be selfish. You can buy another house. This one means more to me because it represents family and togetherness. Marcus and I want to start our lives here." I realized then that this had been planned for weeks, maybe months. The sudden interest in my house, the boyfriend who conveniently worked in real estate, the conversations with lawyers. They'd orchestrated this whole thing. When I continued to refuse, Mom's tone shifted from manipulative to threatening. She brought up every favor she'd ever done for me, every dollar she'd spent on my childhood, every time I'd disappointed her. She said I was proving that I valued money and possessions over family. The conversation went in circles for 2 hours. Finally, I told them I needed time to think about it and left. But I could see in their faces that they weren't going to let this go. Over the next month, the pressure campaign intensified. Mom called daily, alternating between guilt trips and threats. She said I was breaking her heart and ruining the family. Jessica sent long text messages about how hurt and betrayed she felt by my selfishness. She even had Marcus contact me, offering to make it worth my while with connections to other properties. The worst part was how they twisted everything. When I tried to explain how much work and money I'd put into the house, they made it sound like I was bragging. When I mentioned that it was my legal property, they accused me of hiding behind technicalities instead of doing what was right for family. I started avoiding family gatherings and dodging their calls, but that only made things worse. Mom began telling extended family and friends that I was being unreasonable and greedy. Jessica posted cryptic social media messages about being hurt by people you love most. Then came the final ultimatum. It was a Saturday morning in February when my phone rang. Mom's voice was ice cold. "Sarah, I'm done playing games. You have until Monday evening to sign over the house to Jessica, or you're no longer my daughter. I mean it. Choose your house or choose your family, but you can't have both." I hung up without saying a word. That afternoon, Jessica showed up at my door with the papers and a pen. She was dressed up like she was going to a celebration, not trying to steal her sister's house. "Come on, Sarah. Just sign it. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be. We can still be sisters. We can still be a family. But you need to do the right thing here." I looked at my little sister, this person I'd protected and supported our entire lives, and I didn't recognize her anymore. The entitlement, the complete lack of empathy, the casual cruelty of what she was asking for, it was breathtaking. "Get out of my house, Jessica. It's not going to be your house much longer anyway. Mom's going to make sure of that." And she was right. The next Monday, I received a certified letter that made my blood run cold. Mom had hired a lawyer to challenge my ownership of the property. The letter claimed that since Mom had provided financial support during my college years, and since family money had contributed to my ability to save for the down payment, she had a legitimate claim to partial ownership of the house. It was legally absurd, but I knew Mom had enough money to make my life hell with frivolous lawsuits. Even if she ultimately lost, the legal fees would bankrupt me. That evening, my phone rang. Mom again. "Sarah, you brought this on yourself. Sign over the house, and I'll drop the lawsuit. Keep being stubborn, and I'll tie you up in court for years. You know I have the money to outlast you." When I didn't respond, she continued. "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out. That house is your sister's now. Then she hung up. I sat in my beautiful living room, surrounded by everything I'd worked so hard to create, and I felt something inside me break. Not my spirit, my last connection to these people who claimed to love me. But I didn't argue. I didn't call back screaming. I didn't break down crying. I just stayed silent and prepared. The first thing I did was call my friend Rachel, who worked as a paralegal. I explained the situation and asked for advice. She was horrified by what Mom was attempting but confirmed my fears about the legal costs of fighting a determined opponent with deep pockets. Then she said something that changed everything. "Sarah, before you do anything drastic, let me do some research. I want to check something about property transfers under duress and family coercion. Give me 24 hours. The next morning, Rachel called with interesting news. Mom's legal strategy had a fatal flaw. By putting the ultimatum and threats in writing, and by having the lawyers send papers before I'd agreed to anything, she'd created evidence of coercion. More importantly, any property transfer made under these circumstances could be challenged and reversed. But Rachel had an even better idea. What if, instead of fighting this, you let them think they've won? Sign over the house, but do it in a way that protects you. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. The plan was brilliant and completely legal. I would sign over the property to Jessica as demanded, but first, I would take out a substantial loan against the house's equity. Since I was still the legal owner, I had every right to do this. The loan would be for almost the full current value of the property, about $300,000. Here's where it got interesting. The loan would be structured so that Jessica, as the new owner, would be responsible for all payments. If she defaulted, the bank would foreclose, and I'd walk away with the loan money. If she somehow managed to make payments, she'd essentially be paying me $300,000 plus interest for a house I'd already been forced to give her. But there was an even better twist. Rachel discovered that Marcus, Jessica's real estate investor boyfriend, had been exaggerating his success. He was actually leveraged to the hilt and facing bankruptcy on several properties. He wouldn't be able to help Jessica with the payments, and Jessica herself had no credit or steady income. The plan would give them exactly what they asked for while ensuring they'd lose everything within months. I spent my last day in the house implementing Rachel's strategy. I took out a $290,000 home equity loan, which was approved immediately thanks to the property's value and my credit score. The money went straight into a new bank account that Mom and Jessica knew nothing about. Then I began packing, but not the way they expected. I carefully removed every single improvement I'd made to the house. The custom light fixtures I'd installed? Gone. The beautiful subway tile backsplash in the kitchen? Carefully removed and stored. The restored vintage hardware on all the doors? Packed away. Even the plants I'd cultivated in the backyard came with me. I wasn't being vindictive. I was being precise. The house they were stealing was the house I bought 3 years ago, not the dream home I'd created through blood, sweat, and tears. The original fixtures that had been in storage went back up. The old, stained bathroom tiles were reinstalled. I even put back the hideous ceiling fan that had been in the living room when I bought the place. By the time I was done, the house looked exactly like it had the day I'd bought it. Still livable, but ordinary. The magic was gone. On Monday evening, exactly 48 hours after Mom's ultimatum, I left the signed papers on the kitchen counter and walked out. I didn't stick around to see Jessica's reaction. The next morning, I got a call from Marcus. He was screaming about vandalism and property destruction. When I calmly explained that I'd only removed items that belonged to me, leaving behind everything that had been part of the original purchase, he threatened to sue me. Good luck with that, I told him. I documented every improvement I made and kept receipts for everything I removed. You're getting exactly what the property deed describes, nothing more and nothing less. Jessica called an hour later, sobbing and furious. How could you do this? The house looks terrible. It's not what I thought it would be. It's exactly the house you asked for, Jess. The same house I bought 3 years ago. You just never bothered to look at it before I made it beautiful. But all the nice stuff is gone. The kitchen looks awful. The bathroom is disgusting. Then I guess you'll need to renovate. Just like I did. That's when she found out about the loan. I'd left the paperwork on the kitchen counter, right next to the deed transfer. Jessica called me back within minutes, hysteric. What is this loan? Why are there papers saying I owe $290,000? Because you do. You're the owner now, which means you're responsible for all debts against the property. The first payment is due in 30 days. The silence on the phone was beautiful. Sarah, this isn't fair. You can't do this to me. I didn't do anything to you, Jessica. I gave you exactly what you asked for. You wanted the house, and now you have it. Congratulations. Mom called that afternoon, absolutely livid. She'd figured out what I'd done and was threatening everything from lawsuits to disowning me. I let her rant for 10 minutes before I interrupted. Mom, you told me I had 48 hours to get my stuff out because the house was Jessica's now. I did exactly what you asked. Jessica owns the house free and clear. She also owns the mortgage that comes with it. This is what you wanted. You know this isn't what we meant. Then maybe you should have been more specific. But it's too late now. The papers are signed, the transfer is complete, and Jessica is the legal owner. Just like you demanded. The next few weeks were chaos. Jessica tried frantically to sell the house, but no buyer was going to take on a property with a $290,000 mortgage for a place that was only worth $320,000 in its current condition. She'd need to invest another $50,000 in renovations just to get it back to the condition it was in when she took ownership. Marcus, it turned out, was indeed facing bankruptcy and couldn't help. His other investments were failing, and he was about to lose everything. When he realized Jessica came with debt instead of assets, he disappeared overnight. Jessica missed the first mortgage payment, then the second. She begged me to take the house back, promising she'd learned her lesson and would never interfere in my life again. When I refused, she got nasty, threatening to destroy my credit and reputation. But she had no power to hurt me anymore. The loan was in her name, tied to property she owned. Her default wouldn't affect my credit score at all. The unraveling happened faster than I'd expected. Within the first month of Jessica taking ownership, I started getting frantic calls that painted a picture of complete chaos. The first crisis hit when Jessica tried to move in with Marcus. She'd assumed they'd live together in her new house, playing happy couple in the home she'd stolen from me. But Marcus took one look at the stripped-down property and the mortgage paperwork and immediately started backpedaling. This isn't what we discussed, he told her, according to Jessica's tearful phone call. You said you were getting a fully renovated house worth over $300,000. This place looks like a fixer-upper, and you owe almost as much as it's worth. Jessica tried to explain that I'd removed my personal improvements, but Marcus wasn't buying it. He'd already been having second thoughts about their relationship, and the financial liability was the final straw. When Jessica pressed him about their future plans, he admitted he'd been seeing someone else for months. The breakup was brutal. Marcus not only dumped Jessica but also spread word in his real estate circles about her financial situation. Since she'd been bragging to his friends about her new property acquisition, the truth about the mortgage made her look either naive or deceptive. Either way, her reputation in his social circle was destroyed. Jessica called me sobbing after Marcus left, begging me to explain the financial situation to him. She was convinced that if he just understood how we were family and this was all temporary, he'd come back. Sarah, please, you have to call Marcus and tell him this was all a misunderstanding. Tell him you'll take back the loan or something. I really love him, and he thinks I'm some kind of gold digger now. Jessica, you literally are a gold digger. You just dug in the wrong place and found debt instead of treasure. The conversation devolved from there, with Jessica accusing me of deliberately sabotaging her relationship. She couldn't seem to grasp that Marcus had left because she'd misrepresented her financial situation, not because of anything I'd done. But the relationship drama was just the beginning. The real nightmare started when Jessica tried to figure out how to manage the property. She'd never paid a mortgage before, never dealt with property taxes, never handled home maintenance. The first time something broke, the garbage disposal, she called a repair service without getting quotes. The $400 bill for a 15-minute fix sent her into a panic. Then she discovered that property taxes were due. The annual bill was $4,200, money she didn't have. She'd somehow assumed that owning a house meant you just lived there for free. Why didn't anyone tell me about all these extra costs? She demanded when she called me. Because you never asked. You were so focused on taking something away from me that you never bothered to learn what you were taking. The utility bills were another shock. The house was older and not as energy efficient as modern homes. The heating bill for March was $300, which Jessica couldn't afford on her part-time retail job income. But the mortgage payment was the real killer. $1,847 per month, due on the 15th. Jessica's monthly income was maybe $1,200 when she worked full-time hours, which was rare. She lasted exactly 6 weeks before missing the first payment. I found out because the bank called me. Since I'd originated the loan, they contacted me when the new owner defaulted. I explained that the property had been transferred and gave them Jessica's information, but they warned me that if Jessica couldn't resolve the situation, it would affect the original loan terms. That's when I discovered something interesting. In her eagerness to get the house, Jessica had signed the property transfer papers without reading them carefully. The transfer made her responsible for the mortgage payments, but it didn't remove my name from the original loan documents. If she defaulted completely, I could potentially be held liable. Rachel had anticipated this possibility and built in a protection. The loan documents included a clause allowing me to reclaim the property if payments weren't made. It was essentially a safety net that would let me foreclose on Jessica the same way the bank could foreclose on the property. I didn't tell Jessica about this clause. Not yet. Instead, I watched as she scrambled to find solutions. She tried to get a roommate, but who wants to rent a room in a house that looks like a renovation project gone wrong? She attempted to get a second job, but her retail schedule was unpredictable. She even tried to qualify for her own mortgage to pay off the existing loan, but her credit score was terrible and her income too low. Meanwhile, Mom was getting increasingly frantic. She'd realized that her plan to give Jessica a stable foundation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of setting her younger daughter up for success, she trapped her in an impossible financial situation. Mom's first instinct was to blame me, of course. She called repeatedly, demanding that I fix this mess and stop punishing Jessica for wanting a better life. "You did this on purpose," she accused during one particularly heated conversation. "You set Jessica up to fail because you're jealous and vindictive." I gave Jessica exactly what she asked for. If she's failing, it's because she didn't bother to understand what she was asking for. "Don't play games with me, Sarah. You know she can't afford this mortgage. You deliberately trapped her. The same way you deliberately trapped me? The same way you threatened to disown me if I didn't give up my house? I'm just better at setting traps than you are." That seemed to hit home. Mom went quiet for a moment before trying a different approach. "What do you want? Money? An apology? Just tell me what it will take to make this right." "I want nothing from either of you. Jessica owns a house now, just like she wanted. What she does with it is her business." But Mom wasn't done trying to fix things. She started offering to help Jessica with the mortgage payments, which created a whole new set of problems. Mom had money, but not unlimited money. She could cover a few months of payments, maybe even a year, but not indefinitely. And Jessica, who had never learned to budget or live within her means, saw Mom's help as permission to continue spending recklessly. Instead of getting a better job or finding a roommate, Jessica started treating the house like her personal project. She hired contractors to try to restore some of the improvements I'd removed, not understanding that she needed permits for electrical work and that her choices of materials and fixtures were expensive and impractical. Within a month, she'd racked up $8,000 in contractor bills trying to make the kitchen look like it had when I owned the house. The results were terrible. The contractors she'd hired were cheap, and the work looked amateur. The subway tile was crooked, the grout lines uneven, and she'd chosen the wrong type of adhesive for the backsplash. Within weeks, tiles were falling off the wall. "Sarah, I need you to tell me where you bought the original tile and fixtures," Jessica demanded during one of her increasingly desperate phone calls. "I'm trying to put everything back the way it was, but nothing looks right. I'm not helping you renovate the house you stole from me." "I didn't steal it. Mom said it was the right thing to do." "And how's that working out for you?" The truth was, I felt a mix of satisfaction and genuine sadness watching Jessica struggle. Satisfaction because she was learning that actions have consequences, but sadness because she was my sister, and I could see she was genuinely overwhelmed. But I couldn't help her. Every time I'd tried to help Jessica in the past, she'd taken advantage of my generosity and demanded more. This time, she needed to learn to solve her own problems. The second missed mortgage payment triggered a formal notice from the bank. Jessica had 30 days to bring the account current or face foreclosure proceedings. That's when she really started to panic. She tried everything. She applied for credit cards to cover the payments, but her credit was too poor for a high enough limit. She looked into personal loans, but no lender would approve her without collateral other than the underwater house. She even tried to sell some of her belongings, but her designer clothes and accessories weren't worth nearly as much secondhand. Mom, meanwhile, was starting to realize the true scope of the financial commitment. Between the mortgage, property taxes, utilities, and Jessica's renovation disasters, the house was costing almost $3,000 a month to maintain. Mom could afford to help, but not without significantly impacting her own retirement savings. "This is all your fault," Mom told me during one of her increasingly frantic phone calls. Jessica never would have taken the house if she'd known about all these hidden costs. They weren't hidden, Mom. You just never bothered to ask about them because you were so focused on taking something away from me. We weren't taking anything. We were trying to help Jessica build a stable life. By stealing mine? That's when Mom made an offer I hadn't expected. What if Jessica signs the house back to you? We'll admit this was a mistake, and we'll go back to how things were before. You mean back to you treating me like garbage while spoiling Jessica? Back to you criticizing everything I do while making excuses for everything she does? No, thank you. Sarah, be reasonable. We're family. No, Mom. We're related. Family doesn't threaten to disown you if you don't give up your home to your spoiled sister. Family doesn't hire lawyers to steal your property. Family doesn't treat you like an ATM that's supposed to solve everyone else's problems. So what, you're just going to let Jessica lose everything? Jessica chose this. She could have been happy living in your house rent-free while she figured out her life. Instead, she decided she deserved my house because she wanted it. Now she has it, along with everything that comes with it. As the foreclosure date approached, Jessica's desperation reached new heights. She started posting on social media about her situation, painting herself as the victim of a cruel sister who had tricked her into taking on debt. The posts were masterpieces of manipulation and self-deception. She talked about how she'd been given a house that turned out to be worthless and how I'd hidden the mortgage from her. She made it sound like I'd somehow forced her to take ownership and then disappeared, leaving her to deal with consequences she couldn't have anticipated. The responses from her friends were predictably supportive. People who didn't know the full story offered sympathy and advice. Some even suggested she sue me for fraud or deceptive practices. But a few people who knew our family history weren't buying it. My cousin Jennifer commented on one of Jessica's posts with a simple question: didn't Sarah spend 2 years renovating that house herself? What happened to all the improvements? Jessica deleted the comment and blocked Jennifer, but the question had been asked publicly, and other people started asking similar questions. The narrative of victimhood became harder to maintain when people realized Jessica had somehow acquired a renovated house that was no longer renovated. Meanwhile, I was getting calls from relatives who wanted to understand what was really happening. Jessica's social media posts had made it sound like I'd somehow cheated her, but the details didn't add up. I gave everyone the same basic explanation. Jessica and Mom had demanded I sign over my house, threatening legal action and disownment if I refused. I complied with their demands but exercised my legal right to take out a loan against the property before transferring ownership. Jessica was now responsible for the loan payments because she was the owner, which is how mortgage responsibility works. Most people were shocked when they learned the full story. Even relatives who had always favored Jessica couldn't defend what she and Mom had done. The idea of forcing someone to give up their home to a sibling was so outrageous that even our normally diplomatic extended family started taking sides. My Aunt Linda, Mom's own sister, called to apologize for not intervening earlier. She'd known about the family dynamics but hadn't realized how bad things had gotten. I always thought your mother was too easy on Jessica, but I never imagined she'd do something like this. Threatening to disown you if you didn't give up your house? That's not just wrong, it's cruel. The family support was validating, but it also put more pressure on Mom and Jessica. They were used to controlling the narrative and having people automatically take their side. When extended family started questioning their actions, it shattered their certainty that they were the victims. Mom's response was to double down. She started calling relatives to explain her side of the story, insisting that I was being selfish and vindictive and that Jessica deserved help because she was struggling to find her place in the world. But the family wasn't buying it. When Mom explained that she'd hired a lawyer to force me to give up the house, even her most loyal supporters were horrified. The idea of using legal threats against your own child over property was so extreme that it undermined any sympathy people might have had for Jessica's current situation. By month 4, the bank started foreclosure proceedings. Jessica's last-ditch effort was to try to sell the house before the foreclosure completed. She listed it at $310,000, hoping to get enough to pay off the mortgage and walk away with a small profit. But the house was in terrible condition after her renovation disasters, and potential buyers could see that it needed significant work. The highest offer she received was $275,000, which wouldn't cover the outstanding loan balance. She called me one final time before the foreclosure sale, sobbing and begging. "Sarah, please. I know I made mistakes. I know we handled this wrong. But I'm your sister. You can't just let me lose everything. Jessica, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to try to steal my house. You chose to threaten me when I refused. You chose to take ownership without understanding what that meant. Every step of this disaster was a choice you made. But I can't afford to lose the house. It will destroy my credit. You already destroyed your credit by missing mortgage payments. At this point, foreclosure is just making it official. What am I supposed to do now? The same thing I would have done if your plan had worked. Start over. Find a place you can afford. Build a life within your means. Learn from your mistakes. It's not that easy. No, it's not. But it's what adults do when their plans don't work out. They adapt and keep going. The conversation ended with Jessica hanging up on me, but I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. For too long, I'd been carrying the weight of our family's dysfunction. I'd been the responsible one, the one who cleaned up messes, the one who absorbed criticism and blame to keep everyone else comfortable. Watching Jessica face real consequences for her choices was painful, but it was also liberating. For the first time in our relationship, she couldn't manipulate or guilt-trip her way out of a problem. She had to deal with reality on reality's terms. And maybe, just maybe, that would actually help her in the long run. Mom tried to intervene, offering to pay the mortgage if I'd reverse the transfer. But I'd learned my lesson about family manipulation. I told her she was welcome to help Jessica any way she wanted, but I was done being their solution to every problem Jessica created. You made your choice when you threatened to disown me unless I gave up my house. You chose Jessica over me. Now you get to live with that choice. The foreclosure was completed last month. Jessica lost the house and destroyed her credit in the process. She's back living with Mom, who's now furious with both of us but mostly with Jessica for ruining everything. As for me? I'm doing great. The $200,000 from the loan, plus the money I'd already saved, was enough to buy an even better house in a nicer neighborhood. I found a gorgeous 1930s colonial that needed some work, and I'm having a blast renovating it. This time, I hired professionals for the complex jobs while doing the simpler work myself, which means the renovation is going faster and better than before. I also invested some of the money in a diversified portfolio that's been performing well. For the first time in my life, I'm financially secure enough to take risks and pursue opportunities. The best part is the peace. No more manipulative phone calls. No more family drama. No more walking on eggshells around people who claimed to love me but treated me like garbage. I've gone no contact with both Mom and Jessica. They've tried reaching out through relatives and mutual friends, but I've made it clear that I'm done with their toxicity. Some people think I was too harsh. They say family is family and I should forgive and forget. But I disagree. Family isn't supposed to steal from you. Family isn't supposed to manipulate and threaten you. Family isn't supposed to make you choose between your own well-being and their approval. What Mom and Jessica did wasn't a mistake or a moment of poor judgment. It was a calculated attempt to steal something that belonged to me, using emotional manipulation and legal threats to get their way. They got exactly what they asked for. They wanted me to give up my house, and I did. The fact that it came with consequences they didn't anticipate isn't my problem. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I just fought the lawsuit from the beginning. Rachel thinks I would have won, but it would have taken years and cost a fortune. More importantly, I would have had to maintain a relationship with people who had shown me exactly what they thought of me. This way was cleaner. They revealed their true nature, I protected myself financially, and I got to walk away from a toxic situation with my head held high. Jessica learned that actions have consequences. Mom learned that threatening your children can backfire spectacularly. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free. The house that was supposed to represent their victory became the symbol of their downfall. They thought they were taking something from me, but they actually freed me from them. When Jessica walked into that empty, ordinary house that day, thinking she'd stolen her sister's dream, she had no idea she'd just handed me the keys to a much better life. She really wished she had never stepped inside.